Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Tanya Talks. I'm your host, Tanya Ricketts, and joined with me this evening is my sister, Theresa Simpatico.
Mister from another mister.
So, no introduction needed because for the regular viewers out there, Theresa is a regular, meaning I call her my co-host. I've said this in other episodes that you are like my co-host. And tonight we are going to be talking about living with gratitude. We have a little bit of a different spin on it this evening. Theresa, really, we changed direction a little bit just based on how, Theresa, your heart was moved earlier on today. And it was amazing. And it was almost like we wished in that moment we could have been live having that conversation. So it is, again, we are always unscripted. This is a live show. It's an authentic show. We come up with the conversation and just have it as it is. Right? So Theresa, again, yes.
So thanks for having me again. Always happy to be here and having chats with you, whether online or offline. But yeah, gratitude. We had a conversation today. I've been thinking about this because we did this topic not too long ago. And what I really felt was there were times in my life that I wasn't able to be grateful for anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it sounds like, there's always, it's very cliche. There's always something to be grateful for. And yes, in fact, that's true. But what happens when you're going through the hardest times of your life? And I want to be totally candid and honest and authentic. Like there's been times where I want to say that even if there was something to be grateful for, I wasn't grateful.
And I think it takes a lot of courage to admit that. So,
yeah,
you letting us in on that authenticity in that moment of your life, I think is so important for others to be able to connect with and identify that are going through it, right?
absolutely. So during those times, what I felt was I had more of like, sort of like a victim mentality. Like I was living my life over and over again. I was living in my past. And there were so many things going wrong in my life that I couldn't see past anything. And everything was clouded, including things that I could have been grateful for. And I think that's really important to recognize that, right now we're in really hard times. There's a lot of people that are going through really hard things. It's hard to be grateful for when you're losing your business or losing loved ones or people are sick. Let's be empathetic and compassionate and recognize that it's not always going to be easy to realize that there's something to be grateful for. So, I don't want to completely dwell on that because I think a gratitude practice is so important. Because what I recognized for me when I was in those darkest moments of every little step towards, being grateful. And in that moment, it could just be one little thing that helped me get past the fears, things that were happening. It helped me be present in the moment and recognize the things around me. Gratitude gives you presence, right?
Yes.
It's truly around you. And so that's something that I think is really important. It's important to recognize for some people that it's really difficult. And it's also really important to recognize how good it is for us.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
It's what I like about it. We had an offline conversation, and what I liked about it was it sparked back when you brought it up about sometimes we're in that space where we don't feel grateful. And you brought it up. Please remind me what those three things that we usually say we're grateful for. The typical reoccurring
auto. Oh, this is what I said. So the first thing is like, I've heard this, and I'm sure a lot of people have, and they say like, when you have nothing to be grateful for, find your heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
Like we can all do that. And, sometimes it's really difficult to even be grateful to be alive. And that's the reality for people, right? And I know that I can say that there's been times in my life where that was a reality for me, that I no longer wanted to be here. I really did. Like I had those thoughts, I had those feelings. So my heartbeat wasn't necessarily something that I was grateful for in that moment. It even pains me to say that, right? But it's a reality, right? And I don't want, things like that to be stigmatized because it happens a lot. It happens to people that we know. whether they are open about it or not. And sometimes they are, but this is something that people go through, and it's
Mhm.
important to recognize that. But what
Mhm.
I was saying is, even when you start a gratitude practice, and I think this is what you were referring to, is you know, I'm grateful for the roof over my head. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for my job. Tomorrow I wake up, I'm grateful for the roof over my head. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for my job. And
Yeah.
we sort of get stuck on the bigger picture things, right? And when you really start to have a gratitude practice, you start really recognizing small things that we can be grateful for. It doesn't
Right.
have to be like obviously these are really important things, that we have roofs over our head and our family and our health. Those are really big ones, but it can be as simple as, grateful for that stranger that smiled at you because
Mhm.
they made you feel, you know, they made you feel something good inside.
Mhm.
It could be as simple as finding a dime on the ground. And maybe for some, that was 10 cents they didn't have. Or maybe for others, that was, somebody like, dimes from heaven. Someone was
Mhm.
sending them, it was a symbolic thing, it was a message from a spirit. And
It usually is a message, right?
right, right. But I'm just saying, like, it could be the very smallest things that are happening when you really look. There are like so many things to be grateful for. And obviously, like I said, the big ones are always there,
Right.
always really important, always there. So, in my gratitude practice, when I try to have gratitude for things, although I am really grateful for all those bigger picture things, I try to look at the small things and really recognize how someone made a difference in my life. Those things are really important, right?
Mhm.
We also talked about when you're in a good place yourself and, you feel good, your life is, the way you'd like it, you have a good gratitude practice or whatever you're doing. It's for me, I think it's really important to provide someone else with the ability to have gratitude. Someone
Mhm.
else that can say, wow, that person did that for me. Because
Mhm.
in moments when people are struggling, we are also, we should be servers. Like we should be of service. We should be providing others the gift of gratitude,
Right.
because by
Right.
doing something good for someone, you know, that person themselves, will also be grateful. And
Right.
even if they don't have a gratitude practice, but in that moment, even if for that moment, it gives them that positive feeling. And we were talking about this. Gratitude is one of the strongest emotions, positive emotions you can have. When you're in gratitude, there are no negative emotions associated with gratitude.
Right.
They just don't
Absolutely.
work together, right? So
And I like the way you put it when you have the opportunity to contribute to somebody else being in that place of gratitude, you know, s- complimenting somebody, highlighting, like it doesn't have to be
simple.
materialistic.
It doesn't. It could be time, it could be words,
Right.
could be thoughts. Like
Right.
you could just think it for someone. I know it doesn't that doesn't really give someone the opportunity to be grateful, but it's still something that you can do. But yeah, but complimenting someone verbally so that they can say, "Wow, I'm really grateful for that compliment. It made me feel good." So
So
we
just for the audience listening, what Teresa's saying is that every time you give to somebody, that gives them the opportunity to shift that person receiving it into a place of gratitude, you have contributed to um, to that healthy state where negative emotions do not exist, sickness does not
absolutely.
exist, negative thoughts don't exist. That lower vibration of what we feel when we're feeling bad, and we've all felt it, just it can't exist in that particular moment. And if we can capture that and build on that, even one little tiny step into the next moment, you don't have to think about 5 minutes from now, but just to the next moment, like one step at a time forward, it helps you come out of that space. And that,
Absolutely. And not only that, I mean, giving is a really high vibrational thing as well. Like by giving, you are doing something that makes you feel good at the same time.
right.
But if you are like, I mean, let's just make it really simple. Like, let's
Yeah.
think of things that you wouldn't normally think that someone was grateful for. Like, someone was trying to merge in traffic, right? And you let them in because somebody wouldn't, or, somebody dropped something and you pick it up and give it to them. Like, hey, you just lost this, like, sort of thing, right? Small things that you wouldn't think are significant, but those people are generally grateful for those things. And in
Mhm.
that moment, they've just practiced gratitude,
Right.
right? And so, even in our own inner circles, right, in our families, our friends, I think it's really important to bring each other up, to,
Yeah.
show one another that, you know, that depends on what their circumstances are, but everyone needs something different. But no matter what, it doesn't take anything to bring someone up. It
Absolutely.
doesn't. It
It,
just
it really doesn't.
it
It, it,
doesn't.
and it feels good, like when you're able to help empower somebody else into a healthier state. It's such a good feeling. Those are the things I want to touch upon this, only sharing my own personal story just for anybody out there. And I believe when we share stories, it gives opportunities for other individuals to realize that they're normal is what I say, because oftentimes when we're going through tough times, we're healing, we're doing this work, we think something's wrong with us, or we feel bad for the feelings that we're having. And it's not even that we think something's wrong with us, more than we feel guilty and ashamed of feeling the way we're feeling in that moment. And why it resonated with when you called and you were like, hey, listen, I'm having this thought. And I was like, this was part of my life. When I was going through my healing in the earlier years of my life, and, in my 20s and even into my 30s, there were moments where I actually couldn't find something to be grateful for. And I got intellectually that I had a roof over my head, I had a family, I had to the outside world what everybody like looked wonderful. But I didn't feel grateful on the inside because I wasn't experiencing the life that I wanted. And not from a materialistic place. Like I just wasn't happy with myself. And I know through that process, because my life had told me there was nothing to be grateful for with Tanya, the only thing in that moment that I could be grateful for was me. And that was a different space for me. So giving myself permission to say, Tanya, Snoop Dogg did it. Is it Snoop Dogg? Did it, where he gets on and he says, I want to thank myself for showing up to work every day and never missing a day. And I was like, and I had thought this before I even heard that. And I remember thinking in that moment when I heard Snoop Dogg say that, I was like, thank goodness I didn't shy away. And I was true to what I felt in that moment, that I may not have been grateful for all the external things, but I had to learn how to be grateful for the internal things and give myself permission for that first before that I could extend that out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How often are we grateful for what we do ourselves?
Right.
How often do we even think about that?
Absolutely.
You know?
Yes.
I mean, even during healing process and, doing all the work and, even through meditation and self-care, like even in those times, like that's the time, right? To sit there and say, I am grateful because my body is strong. I am grateful for, you know, letting me, use these feet and walk so much, or, and there's so many things that we could be grateful in ourselves. But when do we actually sit down there and sit somewhere and say, hey, these are the reasons I'm grateful for me?
Right. So when Snoop did it, I was like,
I love that. I
I
didn't know he
did.
did that, but that's
Oh,
great.
yeah, like Google it. Anybody out there wants to see it? Like it was, he had an accept. He was, I guess, he was accepting an award. I believe it was, and I don't want to be for sure, but Google it. It's out there, and it was just the most profound thing. And I was like, thank God, like the world, the universe is showing me that I was normal when I was actually only able in that moment to thank me for being alive. Because up until that moment, and you and I both know what our histories told us of who we are and how we were to be defined, that there was nothing to appreciate about us. And
Absolutely.
so to have the courage, and I call it courage and bravery, to be able to be authentic in that moment and not be ashamed about what you said, the not feeling that sense of gratitude. And there are moments where we don't feel grateful because we are in a victim mode, and I've been there. But this was something much deeper. It was like now allowing myself to heal, to be grateful for being alive, for the character and who I am and who I am as a friend and who I am as a wife and a mother and all the things that I never was allowed to, or it appeared that society, my narrative was I wasn't allowed to be grateful for. Witherspoon, I don't know her name, her first name.
Reese
Rita,
Witherspoon.
I know I'm terrible at this. She did an interview and she said, guys do this, stuff where they're celebrating and they're grateful for this, but women don't. We shy away from it. She says it's time that we rise up and start being grateful.
Power ourselves with that.
Yes. And that's what
Gratitude.
resonated. Yes.
I think that's really, important. We talk about self-care. Well, in self-care, there has to be a place for gratitude for our own selves, right?
Mhm.
And I bet you if we started to make a list, the list would be quite long. We just don't think about it. There's so many things to be grateful for, even the small things, right? Um, I mean, I have to wear glasses now, right? But I'm still grateful that I can see, like, and I mean, that's just one small thing, right? But for me, it's still a positive.
Yeah.
But I can now in my life, I can see so many reasons to be grateful. Um,
Mhm.
but really, like you were saying, I don't do it often with myself.
Mhm.
And I think that that's a gratitude practice I want to incorporate into my gratitude practice is, maybe once a week to say, okay, these are the reasons I'm grateful for
Yes.
me. And maybe those can incorporate things that happened that week, things that I accomplished that week, things that I did that week. And I think that's a really great idea. So I think I'm going to incorporate that into my gratitude
You know
practice.
what? And we forget sometimes, like I'm human. Yes. I love the way that you are very inviting and very soothing to the soul because Teresa and I talk offline, and when we talk, it's like, okay, wait, because we can go on for hours. I love the way you frame, position, and hold space that, listen, it's not that easy. Practicing gratitude sometimes isn't easy. Doing the work isn't always easy. So you hold space for us to grow in that for the people that are around you and close to you.
Absolutely. I just want people to know, like, I today actually after our call, I was almost in tears, and I don't want to tear up here. Maybe I will. I don't know. I can sort of feel it coming on, but it's really important to realize that sometimes practices like this are hard, and
Yeah.
even though, like I said, even though it seems like even for me now, a gratitude practice seems very simple, and I can look at things and like I said, the smallest of things, and I can be grateful for them, but it wasn't always that way.
Mhm.
And I want to call a spade a spade. Like, we have to really recognize, because it's easy to lose sight of that sometimes. Because
Mhm.
I've done a lot of work to get to where I'm at. So
Right.
I'm in this place, and I'm in a good place, but I wasn't always there. For a good part of my life, I wasn't there. Right? For most of my life, I wasn't there, and that's the truth. That's
And
the truth.
I love the fact that the narrative that we've said in this conversation is about filling ourselves up with our own inner gratitude first. Because I always say when you are filled, we talk about it over and over again, but I think it's not, we don't have it instilled in us enough to realize that once you are satisfied and nourished and fed within, then you have so much more to give out to the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah, I agree with you. So facing so much trauma in someone's life, it's tough to get through all of that, and
Mhm.
that's part of it. That's part of the reason why at times there was nothing for me to be grateful for,
Mm.
and it's just I didn't have the capacity. I didn't have the mental capacity, the physical capacity, any
Mhm.
capacity to be grateful for anything. You
Mhm.
know, yeah, I want to say that that happened. I mean, for a good, like for most of my life, I was in that space. But I can say because I came from that space, right? And because I've walked those shoes, I understand. And that's what I really want people to know is that, some of us have walked in those same shoes. We have faced trauma, we have faced bullying, we have faced abandonment, have faced a lot of different things. And it's important to know that, there is another side to this. There is a way to get through things. And the reason I think that this gratitude practice is so important is because, we live in fear, right? So if you're in fear or something's happening, if you switch your mindset to gratitude, you've just removed that fear based mindset to a gratitude mindset. And even if it is for a moment, you are alleviating that from your mind, your body, and your soul. What nourishment do you give your body when you do that? So
Mm-hmm.
you're healing by doing that. So that's really important. And maybe it's baby steps, and maybe it's one day. And if you can't think of something, maybe you do feel your heartbeat, and if that is not enough in that moment, maybe you reflect on somebody from your past that you are grateful for, somebody who did something for you, who said something to you. I'm sure we can also dwell. I mean, it's easy to dwell on the negative. It's very simple to live there, right? And once you've been there for so long, it's hard to move past that. But if you sit there and really think about it, everyone, I'm sure, has something to be grateful at one point, grateful for at one point of time in their lives. If nothing in the present, although that's the goal, is to get to gratitude in the present because it brings
Yes.
you to the present. But
Right.
if you can't, is there someone that provided you something that gave you, some nourishment, that gave you some love, that made you feel really good in that moment? Can we be grateful for that person?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that everybody can think of one person who has done that for them in their lives.
I absolutely agree, resonating on so many levels. I want to bring it to when you were talking about your own personal moment of not being able to find that, because that level of gratitude, because I imagine, especially during this time of the pandemic that we're going through, there's a lot of grief, there's a lot of loss in so many levels, businesses, jobs, as you said, and you were the one that said it earlier on. So it wasn't out of me, it was out of Teresa, at an offline conversation we had earlier on. And you were saying there's so much people are losing loved ones. And how do we find gratitude in these times when it's not necessarily working the way you expected it to? You are going through hard times.
Yeah. And that's tough because I know I've been there, right?
Mhm.
So I don't want to say that, to someone out there who is really struggling and going through something, that, come on, you have to be able to tell me one thing that you're grateful for, right?
Mhm.
Because I know that that's not always possible. But what I can say, and this is the only thing that I can tell you from experience, is for those that are suffering in that magnitude, that are suffering so strongly that they can't see past that, and recognize that there is something to be grateful for, to do it in small steps, to in the moment, you know, that you're feeling all that pain, for one moment, sit there and say, I am grateful for, and see if anything comes to you.
Mhm.
And like I said, and maybe, and just maybe, there's a few techniques, and I don't know if it would work for one or all or none. But how about posting a message, on your mirror, on the inside of your car, and maybe you say, I am grateful for this car. I am grateful for my life. Something that gives you a moment to say that I'm grateful, to change
Mhm.
that to a more elevated state, to change your state of mind to a more elevated state. So
Mhm.
maybe it's a matter of leaving notes places. If someone's not well, maybe you put pictures up of when you were well, right? Because you were grateful for a strong body. So to me, I think it's very healing that you can look at yourself and say, I am strong. And to see yourself that way, you will see yourself as strong, right? So maybe it's putting pictures up of a time that you felt healthier or better or stronger, um, as a way to bring that into gratitude. If it's
Mhm.
a person, and there's a person that had a major influence in your life, maybe they're no longer here, and that's a really sad part. But what about a picture of them in a time where they provided you with something that you feel so grateful for?
Mhm.
So there's different things that we can do. What about, having, I know that there's something else you can like get rocks and paint message or write messages on them. I think we did that one during one of our sister circles,
We
actually,
did, we did, we
right?
did, right, yes.
And so maybe it's writing a message to yourself. Um, and maybe it's gratitude or hope or love. And, trying to bring yourself to a more elevated state or as a reminder, to be grateful for something. Like I said, I don't have all the answers because I know how
Well,
hard it
because I
is.
think they're different. Everybody's got their different, like it's about finding, because I know that in the moment of not being grateful, it wasn't just one moment. So I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh, it was only one moment of my life. There were many moments in my life that
Yeah,
I wasn't necessarily able to sit back and say, hey, and I can't say I'm proud or not proud of it. I just understood that that's where I was at. I know though that there were moments in my life when I was in that space that what I decided to do, not out of gratitude, out of just what made me happy. And what made me happy was maybe going out to help out somebody else, just to take my mind off of me for a second. Because being in me in my own muck and struggling and pain and turmoil wasn't making me feel good. So I like to help people. So I would do that. And in that moment of giving, contributing to helping someone in whatever capacity I could, it made me feel good. And then I was able to start tapping into gratitude in that moment.
well, obviously, in that moment too, when you're helping people, right? You see them happy or you see
Yes.
that they are grateful. So now you are grateful for their emotions,
Yes.
right? It's self-serving to some degree, but in a very positive way, right? Um, but I can see that being like an amazing way to do things. If you are down, maybe to help someone who's less fortunate, to see, how that impacts their life and how grateful they are.
And
Um,
a lot of the gurus say when you're going through your own stuff, the best thing you can do is help somebody be successful in whatever
Absolutely,
it is. And
whatever
success.
it is,
Yeah.
successful or help them in any way, right?
Anyway. And I define success. It could be like me coming over and being a lending ear to you and helping you successfully come through that moment.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, all right, I get it now. I understand now, why that is in place or why they suggest that, why the big gurus suggest that.
Yeah. I don't want to, sugarcoat anything. So
Hmm.
obviously, and some people that have watched some of our shows know, but I have a lot of abandonment issues because of my mother.
Hmm.
That's clear, and so one of the things, and I know this is not like, I don't want to say that going through pain or trauma, you should be able to say, hey, that doesn't like, something positive happened through that, because it's not a positive experience. However, I mean, I do in my own life parent the way I would have wanted to be mothered. I mother the way I wanted to be mothered.
Hmm.
Um, and I found that to be a very positive experience. So I'm sort of grateful because, I don't know what the circumstances would have been otherwise.
Hmm.
Right. Um, but I also don't want to say that that did not have a huge impact on my life in a negative way. It did. But I'm also grateful that I am the mother that I am and possibly because of it.
And we never know until we've come through it, the benefits of it. Because let's face it, I tell everybody, if they're like, oh, if I had to do it over again, I would. I would. I'm grateful for who I've become through it, but ask me to do it again, I don't want to do it again. So,
I agree. I totally agree.
and I don't wish it on anybody or anything. And I think we say to soothe ourselves, well, look at this as a result of. Well, we'll never know what the other side was. Maybe I would have been at a higher place had I had support or we don't know. What
No.
I do know is being present in the moment is I'm extremely grateful now, but I wasn't grateful then.
No. No. And those are really, really hard times, right? Like, let's be realistic. They were hard times.
Mhm.
Some of the things that we faced in our life. I used to say like I experienced more in my life by the age of 20 than most people do in a lifetime.
And
And
it's
I
funny, I
was
don't know about you, but people could never believe, like, when I could identify with them so quickly, being in my
Yes.
20s, people were like, ah, she's lying, you don't have enough experience, you're just a kid. And I'm thinking, yeah, well,
Right.
you
Because
know.
it was so much so
Hmm.
early on in our lives, right?
Hmm.
Um, but I mean, to get back to being grateful, yeah, I'm grateful for where I am today. And I think that, part of where I am is because of a gratitude practice, other practices as well. I mean, it's not just gratitude, but I think it's a great place to start.
Hmm.
Um, and, there's a few things that you can do, like just saying I am grateful for, and like I've given you some examples, right? And if
Hmm.
you can't think of something now in the present, which is ideal, um, you know, think of something from your past. Think of something from your future. I'm going to be grateful for, being healthy again, or I'm going to be grateful for
I
when
like that
COVID's
one.
over,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Think about your future gratefulness. Anything to bring you into that high emotion, right?
Hmm.
I would say is beneficial, right? And to take you out of that, any negative emotions that you could have at that time.
I think what you just said is so powerful because, I'm into energy and I'm into what you focus on, you manifest. And I
You're
was just demonstrating earlier on to somebody that sometimes we can get so caught up in explaining, exactly this. And I'm guilty of this. So let me be rest assured I'm guilty of this. Where we will explain the past in a way that we think it's serving us, but it's really keeping alive all the things that we don't want. And
Yeah,
it's still keeping that alive. So I love the way that you just said, you know, um, being grateful for what's coming. Like, I'm so grateful that I'm healthy. And, if somebody's going through sickness, it's
yeah,
really being grateful for, and it's allowing your body, because we understand the science behind it, not just the spiritual component, but what that does to the physical body. And somebody came on last night that talked about peptides and neurons and the way it restructures everything and changes the chemical makeup of the disposition of the body and the heart and all the rest of that. So there's science behind it. So you get to a place of gratitude of what you want, it changes the landscape of a lot of things for
absolutely.
you. Hmm.
Yeah, I think that's so true, right? And in that moment in your physical state, your body is changing,
Hmm.
right? Because if you're always in like, and I mean, I've been there, so I know, like if you're always in fear and anxiety and anything that's causing disruptions to your emotions, negative, being in negative emotions. I mean, I've been there and I just lived there, right? I was hands up, everybody. Let's see. um, yeah, I lived there for a long time, right? And, you know, there were very few times in my life that I could recognize, um, or I could get past the negativity. But it was because it was so ingrained in my past. I was so ingrained in my past. I relived my past every single day in my thoughts, in my words, in my actions.
And in my journal.
um, and yeah, and I couldn't like I'm telling you, a gratitude practice takes you away from that immediately, immediately. You know,
It's interesting that you say that practice, because I think a lot of us don't know. Well, now it's becoming more available, the resources to live a life of gratitude. Now, we've been on this journey for many years, and I can't say that there were the amount of resources available to us when we had started out on this journey. And I always believe that everything happens for a reason, whether our soul calls it. We can go into a whole rabbit hole discussion there. And a friend had gifted me a book for Christmas. It was a gratitude journal. And I said, Dear God, this is coming to me for a reason. I don't know why. And it was in that moment that I didn't feel gratitude. And I do not think that this individual that had sent me this book had, or gifted me this book for Christmas, knew the impact it had on my life to this day. So whoever she is out there, she knows who she is. It impacted my life to this very day. And I made a decision that I was going to actually use the book every single day. And I believe it was like a 7 month book that and my kids are, competitors, and they had, I took it if we were at a hotel. I took it to the hotel with me. I made sure that every single day for those 5 minutes, I filled it in. And some of what you saw I wrote was just because I wanted to fill the lines.
Yeah.
I was making it up because
Yeah.
I knew. I would say half of that book, I wasn't grateful for anything in that book, but I made a
But
commitment.
yeah, not only that, I bet you changed your state of mind, right?
To this day, I will openly and honestly say that um, I will openly and honestly say that to this day, one day I was writing in my journal and I was like, do you know that even today, if you read my journals, every line has thank you. Like, thank you for the revelation. Thank you for changing course for me. Thank you for revealing that to me that, it's a thank you. And I was like, wow, this one book reshaped whether I believed it or not. And I was angry in the moment. So, what I say to people is, you don't necessarily have to feel it. Make a decision just to do it sometimes. Not always.
Right. Yeah, and you know what? If you have a regular practice and you do it every single day, it's good to write it down because when you put it pen to paper, it's different than just saying it. I'm not a writer, I'm not a journaler.
Yeah.
It's not for me.
Yeah.
But writing down three things that you're grateful for for me, pen to paper for that makes it concrete, right? It makes it real,
Yes.
right? And it's different thinking it. It's almost it's better to verbalize it, to say it out loud. But for me, the writing makes it actual for
Mhm.
whatever reason for me.
Mhm.
And I felt, and that's how, and like I was saying before, sometimes it was just very redundant. It was the same thing over and over and over again. And it was like, oh, wait, I mean, I'm always going to be grateful for those things, right? Because those are really important things. And I'm very blessed in my life. So those things I've had, and they've been consistent job, consistent house, all these great things. And like I said, I'm very lucky. But, uh, you know, those were things and they were real, but it was always the same thing. And I felt like, okay, like, is there nothing else? And then I started thinking about what gratitude really meant, right? And what we really saw as normal everyday things, I was really able to be grateful for them,
Mhm.
right? And that is it's just a beautiful state to be in. It really is.
Right.
And it brings you to the present moment, allows you to see what's around you, right? When you're grateful for what you have, you don't really need more because you see it in a different light,
Mhm.
right? And that's another thing. I started becoming more of a minimalist because of all of it. Because when I looked at, I did. I literally said, I don't need this. I don't need what is all this? This is just stuff. Oh my goodness, I have so much stuff. Because I started recognizing that I didn't need that stuff or hang on to that stuff to be grateful because there were so many other things.
Well,
Right?
gratitude actually fills you up, and that's the whole. I'm smiling and I'm breathing deep because I resonate. It's so true. Like when you can feel the emotion again, I didn't feel, I had a lot of stuff going on around me. So I wasn't becoming a minimalist. I just made a decision that I would stick to it. But as it started to change me, the practice, and I could feel it, you are absolutely correct. All of a sudden, life becomes simple. We don't require things to fill us up because we're so busy being filled up in other ways. Our souls are being fed, nourished, and
Yeah,
properly. It's like proper nourishment. It's like all of a sudden you eat the foods that give you the proper vitamins and nutrients, you actually eat less.
absolutely.
So it's
Right?
the same thing.
Yeah. And so, I mean, not that that, I mean, I'm pretty sure it's relevant because, it's when I started becoming grateful for other things that I recognized how much stuff I actually had. And that's because now I was like, oh my gosh, I'm grateful for this. And why do I have all this stuff? It was really heavy. For me, that was heavy. So it's not like I'm a true minimalist that I have nothing. I don't purposely go out and get more, just because that like shopping it gives you an elevated state for a short time, right? It's like eating. When you're
Mhm.
indulging in something really good, it gives you an elevated state because it's so good. Shopping is the same. There's a few other things that are like that as well. but they're temporary, right? And short, and they don't live long. So, I used to be, when I was in a really bad mood, I'd go shopping.
Hmm.
I go shopping. I was happy. I could spend hours shopping because I was like, yeah, I just want to get out of the state of mind. And I was elevated because I was getting stuff, right? But when I started the gratitude practice, I didn't need stuff. I don't need stuff, because like you were saying, I was being nourished and filled by the things that were already around me,
Yes.
right?
It's phenomenal what that looks like, because something happened in the moment of watching the show, and I was so grateful for the show, but it was weird how the correlation hit, because I still, to this moment, I'm not able to connect the two. But I
Mhm.
emptied out my wardrobe,
Oh,
and in my wardrobe unit, I have two empty drawers that were once overflowing, and in my closet, I gutted out 75% of my wardrobe. And anybody that knows me knows that, like, that's close to me, that's seen my closet. It's not a very big closet. So 75% of my wardrobe, because every piece had a story in this, and I was hanging on and this and that. And I just didn't need it anymore. I found my happiness and my gratitude through this. And I still, again, I'm still working to figure out how clothes paralleled.
is this a revelation? Because it sounds like a revelation. Like we
Well,
hold
yeah,
on
like I
to
said,
stuff. We even
it's
hold on to our past. We hold on to so many things
right,
for different reasons, right?
right.
But honestly, like if you are really grateful for something and you are really filled up with that gratitude, it makes a huge difference and impact on your surroundings, on the people around you, on what you need and want. And I know that because I've come from a place of I don't want to say, sort of like a scarcity mindset as well, in many ways.
Mhm.
Scarcity, even though I always had enough, right? I always had a very scarcity mindset because of my past and stuff like that. Even with people, scarcity mindset with people, that I just felt like I wasn't going to have enough people in my life, right? Or I was having people leave my life, or abandonment issues and all this. Um, but I can tell you that the more gratitude I have, the more I'm filled with these amazing, beautiful people around me.
Yes.
Honestly. Um, and I'm so grateful. Tanya, I'm so grateful for you. I just think that you are an amazing woman. You know that. You're an amazing friend. I love you. I am grateful for you. So I feel very grateful to have someone like you in my life. I'm grateful. You're not the only one,
Yes.
but I have amazing
But
people
it's
in.
all of a sudden you wake up and you realize you're surrounded. I've been saying this for the last couple of weeks to people, that there was a time in my life that I was not surrounded by people that I was happy with. And I always say relationships just aren't about with spouses, it's with your children, your coworkers, your friends, your social setting. And I wasn't able to be authentic and true or accepting or not judged or all the rest of it. And I'm like, wow, when you really do this work and start to get to a place of self-love and start to understand the gratitudes and art, start to really know that you're worth you're worth loving you. It's interesting what starts to show up around you. And I am surrounded by phenomenal individuals where we are showing up yourself. We have lots of, we're there for each other. Anybody that knows, we're there for each other. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And what I want to paint when we talk about it not being easy, what I love about Theresa and I'm grateful for extremely. So this was part of my growth, is that Theresa and I could agree to disagree. And we've had some pretty heated discussions, but love each other and accept each other and be like, all right, time to move on. Like, and usually friendships feel threatened. Let's call it, they feel threatened. We're not secure sometimes within ourselves, that we think the relationship's going to dissolve, or it's not going to work. And it was just a beautiful experience. And I'm calling it how our relationship is, that we agree on so many things. And then there's those little moments where we're like,
They're rare. Come on,
that's what I
they're
said,
rare.
those little moments. I just said little moments.
Here's it all.
you know, but when they do happen, what I appreciate and so I'm giving transparency. What I appreciate is we give each other the space, but we're very comfortable having a voice.
Absolutely. Like, what is there without our voices? That's really important, right? But
Right.
I'm going to tell you what's really amazing in all of this, right? Is that when I look back at my life,
Hmm.
I can tell you, I can think of some friendships, some other things that I wasn't grateful for at the moment because I always had other thoughts in the back of my mind. When is this friend going to walk out on me?
Hmm.
Or, what is this person going to do to me?
Hmm.
And I had this mindset. So I was never grateful for them.
Hmm.
And I can tell you that that's completely changed because of my
Right.
gratitude practice.
Yes.
Because had I have been grateful and different in those times, I imagine that I would have seen them in a different light
Yes.
because I created the story. I
Yes.
was the creator of the story. The story was sort of created for me because it was traumas and stuff that I had to face. But
Yeah.
then as I went on in life, I still created those same stories and the same narratives over and over again. But I know for sure that at some point that all changed for me. And
Right.
that changed with a gratitude practice.
Yes.
So I think that's really important because we need to identify how we came out of it. And meditation is one as well. And I don't want to forego that. But because this is a gratitude show, I really want to give credit where credit is due. But
Right.
it was one of the major things in my life
Hmm. Hmm.
that caused me to look at things in a different way, from a different perspective, from a different lens, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I know for me personally, and it's recent. So, guys, like just because I've been doing this work for so long doesn't mean that I've arrived. And, some of the things are more are fresher. Some of the things are older. But I know that even when we were in our sister circle, and I was like, okay, like yourself, like I will never put myself fully. I would have never. Now I'm very comfortable doing it, and in such a short time. I was never fully comfortable putting both feet in. And I remember you looking at me saying to me, well, you do know that you're not alone doing this. Like you really have to stop acting like you're alone and you can do this by yourself. I was like, what? She's talking about? And my defensive, my whole vulnerability weakness was just like, nope, need a shield, need a shield. Somebody's coming in, like that whole, and the whole wall went up. And you're like, okay, well, I'll let you be. Like I appreciated the fact. So in those moments, I appreciated the fact that you gave me the space to learn how to trust.
Yeah.
And so did the surrounding sisters. Was nobody was um intrusive or aggressive. It was like, okay, go through your
Holding
process.
space.
Right. We'll still love you through this.
Yeah.
Like, okay. But we understand on a deeper level what trauma is and what it does to people when they feel threatened, how we guard ourselves and we close in. It's like an allergy, all of a sudden the bodies were being attacked.
Yeah.
And when I started to feel grateful just hearing the words, I was like, thank God, like, wow. But I couldn't say that I fully trusted it. And every single day, it was just a new opportunity to say that, no, wait, it's showing up different. And I was grateful for what was showing up to the point it was like, I completely surrendered. And I was like, okay, this is my life. This is the type of people I'm surrounded with. And that opened the door for me to extend that and add in a whole community of people that, all right, this is it. So the gratitude, and the more I'm grateful for it is the more people start to show up. Like, this is
Exactly. And that's
wonderful.
exactly what's happened for me, right?
Right.
And I know it's got to do with gratitude. So even though I came from this place of despair and fear and anxiety and victim mentality, and all these things, and facing the hurt and the pain, even though I came from that, I this really helped me to get where I'm at, to be able to be in this state, to be able to say, that I'm in a good place, to be able to look around and be present and understand how much I have and what there really is. There's so much to be grateful for. Where at
Mhm.
times, like I said, there was nothing to be grateful for. I've come so far just with a gratitude practice. It started very small. So
Mhm.
it doesn't have to start big, like I said, right? So that's really important. So we know what it's like to be there, but it's
Mhm.
so wonderful to be here.
Right. And it's almost like I'm only going to speak for myself. I don't know. And again, I want to preface that it's not easy. And my age, it took a lot of years of work and trusting and breaking down those walls. I don't like, I wouldn't even thinking back, I'm like, who was that person that didn't live in gratitude? And I understand I had went through the process and I'm not going to deny it, but it is almost like you don't recognize that person anymore because you are living in such a state of gratitude in this present moment.
Yeah. For many, many years, it crept up over and over again, even with a practice. I mean, I still had all the other stuff creeping through. With all the other things that I was doing, though, I was able to finally get to a place where I'm in a good place.
Mhm.
But it wasn't quick. There was no quick and easy fix because, you spent most of your life there, right? Most
Mhm.
of your life in this past, right? So there's no quick and easy fix, but I can tell you with one step at a time, you can get there.
Absolutely. And, even to this very day, I still face challenges and struggles. But what I'm grateful for are the resources and the tools and the support that I have surrounding me. Like, now we're learning more and more about, meditative practices. We're learning more about being mindfulness, like about mindfulness and being present, being in the moment. So we have a lot of tools, and then we have support. We have wonderful friends. I'm surrounded in this moment with wonderful people that sometimes I just need a little bit of deposits. Right? I can call
And
them.
that's how I want to sort of end this. I sort of like a Teresa challenge, right?
Yeah.
What I'd really like to challenge everyone who's in a good place, right,
Mhm.
is to think how you can give something to someone to
Mm.
make them feel grateful
Mhm.
in a moment. Um, and it can be somebody who you feel may be in a good place. It could be someone who's not well. It could be someone who's struggling financially, or there's something's happening during COVID, and you want to assure them that, or give them that space and the opportunity to be grateful for something. I
Mhm.
challenge everybody every day, and it could just be, I mean, we can't really smile with our masks on, but like I said this before, you can still see people smiling with their eyes.
Yes, you did. Yes.
Right? So what I would say is I challenge everybody that can and is able to give someone else something to be grateful for so that we can elevate each other, right? In that moment, you're elevating the other person. And by seeing that person, you're elevating yourself. So that's
So
my
you know
challenge.
what I want to add to that because I think that this is really cool. And it just came to me as you're saying that elevate and that we stopped sending actual mail, like, and
Yeah.
um how cool is it to send somebody a card in the mail and let them check that mailbox. And it's a card in the mail. And it just came to me now. I'm like, we're so used to sending texts and this and that. How cool to do something a little different and send somebody a card in the
I think that's a wonderful idea. I think it's absolutely wonderful. Um, but I mean, that's one thing. But look at all the things you can do,
mail.
right?
Absolutely.
They don't have, but
Absolutely.
I love that. Yeah. And that would be a wonderful surprise because I'm sure people, it's unexpected for sure,
Right.
right?
What do we go to and we don't even go to the mailbox for our bills anymore because everything's online.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's like, how cool is it to actually go to the mail and be like, wow, like we talk about, and again, we've only got like what 5 minutes remaining. So this is a whole other conversation, but we talk about doing things differently. And technology is allowed, like we're now molded and ingrained with technology. So how do we do it differently? We'll go back to mail,
Old
change it up,
school.
do it different. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yes, I agree with you. Like, it's such a good suggestion that just do something to contribute to allowing somebody to feel a sense of gratitude in that moment of receiving something that will elevate them to a place of gratitude. And you'll feel grateful too that you were in a position to contribute as well. So you're right. It's us participating collectively together in gratitude.
Imagine if we all did that once a day, every
Mhm.
day, whether it's a text to a friend saying, or a message that you see a picture on Facebook and say, you're beautiful. It could be, to make someone feel good about themselves. It doesn't even have to be that. It could be a text to a friend or someone you haven't talked to in a long time. Say, and it could be something, a positive message you send to them or tell them that you're thinking about them. And in these times, we need that because we're so isolated from one another. I know we have Zoom, but there's been so much, you know, segregation and internally, physically, everything. Like we're just so like alone. I mean, we have our family and we have this, but there's no harm in reaching out to people and
Absolutely.
think about the impact that you're having on their lives.
Mhm.
Do it once a day. If we all did that, if the human race all did that once a day, I
What
think
it would look like. Yes.
right. We
It's
would be in
interesting.
gratitude. There'd be a lot
Right.
of people in gratitude more often.
I remember when I let my guard down and I allowed myself to tell it didn't matter who you were. I just I felt love in my heart for humanity. And I made a point. I do it with you. I do it with a lot of people around me. And every time I spoke and I was coming off the phone, I always said, I love you. And I remember in the beginning it was easy for me, but I didn't realize how challenging it was for people to accept it because it's like, what did you just say? We don't say that. Like, what do you mean? It was like,
Like, no, can't say I love
right,
you. Like,
right.
what do you
And it was,
mean? Like, what?
and again, it didn't matter who you were. If it was my aunt, it was my friends. Like, all my friends know. Like, I say to you, like, all my friends know. It's like, I love you. Okay, we'll talk later. I love you. And I laugh because I remember getting some feedback from some individuals saying, it felt really nice, but it was just really weird because, who says that? And I remember I was telling somebody I love them. I was coming off the phone, and my husband's like, who are you talking to? I said, it was my girlfriend. I was just coming off the phone with my girlfriend. And he says, you say I love you? And I'm like, yeah, what's wrong with that? And I said, am I going to do? Wait till their deathbed and
Talking
oh,
then?
yeah, like, you know, I'm so great. And I remember being very grateful for having the opportunity to tell somebody I love them.
Yeah. Are we
I,
lucky? Like we're really fortunate in our lives. I really, I am. I say we. I shouldn't, speak for the masses, but I am really grateful for where I'm at. I'm grateful because I started a practice that allowed me to be grateful, and and it took me out of a mindset that I was in, and it was critical to healing and to bring myself to an elevated state and
Mhm.
to feel good every single day instead of feeling bad
Right.
every single day. um so, and when I'm struggling now, that's even like, because life happens and problems happen, it's just life, this is a
Yeah.
human existence, right? So when things do happen, that's where I go to. I sit there, I close my eyes, and in that moment where I'm feeling that, I close my eyes. I don't have to get a pen or paper, but in that moment when I'm feeling that, I am grateful for, and I come up with whatever is on my mind and I try to image or picture it. I look around, and in that moment, even now, because like I said, I mean, there's ups and downs in life, no matter where you are in your life. I use it a lot.
Yes.
So it helps me stay grounded and present and realize and remember and realize, even in those hard moments, that there's other things that are there to be grateful for.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you. It has been a different type of living with gratitude kind of conversation, a nice one that I feel that needed to be had. So thank you for calling me up and saying, hey, look, I'm being called to have this type of conversation. I feel very grateful. I think it's very much needed, as I said. Thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate each and every one of you. I know I get emails and I get messages of so many of you guys out there just thanking the show for being the show and the content and all the guests that come out and share all this valuable information. So I'm very grateful for each of you for giving of your time to plug in and really be here with us. So thank you. I'm on tanyatalks.ca. Also, please subscribe and like, I'm in gratitude mode right now. Please subscribe and like Tanya Talks. Or also, I am a one-on-one coach, and I would be happy to work with you to help you come to a healthier place for yourself, visit thetanyaexperience.com. Look forward to seeing you next Tuesday, 7 o'clock. We got a nice week lined up next week. It'll all be posted. The shows will be posted on tanyatalks.ca. So visit and it'll show all the upcoming shows. Theresa, thank you again. I love you.
I love you too. And thank you so much for having me again. I always love, an open conversation about
Yes.
all of this. And this was a really, really important, one to have. So I appreciate being here again.
Yes, thank you. I have to say this really quickly. Theresa will be talking to us about the power of words. So I know a lot of you have written in saying that you love when Theresa brings content to Tanya Talks. So I'm letting you know, go to the website, tanyatalks.ca. She will be joining us in April to talk about the power of words. All right. Have a good one, everybody. Good night.
Good night. See you. Bye.
It won't let me exit. I don't know.
Let's just keep going. No kidding.
I'm literally stuck. Okay, here we go. Good night.